Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video, we are going to discuss about the draft table, different components of the draft table, why we need total ETag in the draft scenario, and what is the significance of the different draft actions which we have defined in my previous video, like edit, prepare, discard, resume. These all are the actions which we have defined in our behavior definition. And once we define these actions in draft scenario, how it will work, we no need to do any implementation. Let's get started. We will start with the draft table. The draft table is a normal database table only. Like we have active table, same as we are having the draft table as well. But whenever we are creating the draft table, some of the things we have to make sure. First thing, the draft table first field should be client, CLNT it should be. And whenever you generate the draft table using the quick fixes, that time you will see the draft table is automatically created. Your first field will be the client. Whatever the fields available in your CDS entity, on top of that CDS entity you created the draft table, then the what fields are available in the CDS entity, those fields will be available in your draft table as well. If you add some additional field in your CDS entity, then you have to add in your draft table as well. That's a very important thing. The name should match, the data type and length should match for the CDS entity and the draft table. Apart from this thing, we will be having one include, that is name as a admin at the last of the draft table. This include contains some of the field like who changed this particular draft table, who created this draft entry, when it got created, when it got changed, what kind of activity we have done. This kind of information will be stored using these fields which is available in this particular include. Something I have missed? I think we have covered almost all the things. Apart from this things, the technicality about the draft table, whenever you have to access the draft table, whenever you have to modify the draft table, you should always use the EML statement. In the EML statement, we are having one additional indicator called percentage is a draft, that is the derived type. We have the additional information. This should be flagged as a X or it should be MK on, then only you will be gonna modify the draft table. If this flag is not set and you are using any EML statement on your any entity, then it will work on the active table. As soon as you set this draft indicator, it will work on the draft table. This active table and draft table little bit different. Why? Active table have a lot of instances. We have created the travel ID. There will be the n number of travels, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 999, n number of travels are available. But the draft table will be having the limited entries. But whenever you create for any active table, active instance, the draft that will only come in the draft table. So draft table will be having very less number of entries. Suppose 5 users are working, they can work on the 5 instances, different instances. Those 5 entries will be available in the draft table. The number of entries, always draft table will be having very minimal entries. But number of entries in the active table, there will be the huge number of entries. The second thing, so that is the reason, but access point of view, the user most of the time will work on those 5 entries. But even in the active table, we have the huge number of entries. User will not work on those huge number of entries. So that is the reason, the technicality wise, we have to define differently the technical setting. So suppose I'm thinking, if you are accessing any table faster, that it can be stored as a buffer table, or it can be stored any memory location where we can frequently access this particular draft table. So technicality wise, both are the different things. One most important thing, you should not access the draft table using the select queries, normal select queries, or you should not update the draft table using the update, delete and modify statement which we are using normal on the normal table. You should use always EML statement. Why I am talking, when you use the EML statement, then only that include which we have additionally defined in the draft table that will be modified. If you use normal select statement or modify statement, delete statement, then that include will be not modified and you will be creating inconsistencies in the system. So SAP not recommend directly modify the draft instances or draft table using the normal select query statement and normal modify, delete, insert statement. You should use always EML statement with this draft indicator. So these all are the things we have to make sure whenever we are working with the draft. Now we will see in the system how this draft table look like. We already generated the draft table, but we will see how these fields are matching with the CDS entity and other stuff as well. This is our behavior definition. In this behavior definition, we have the active table and we have generated the draft table in my last video using the quick fix. And if you do control click, this is my draft table. Apart from this draft table, the first field you can see, this is the mandate field, and you can see this admin include as well in my draft table, which automatically got added when I generated through the quick fixes. If I open this include, and if you can see the description of this includes, this is the draft created when this particular draft is created, draft last change 8 when this particular draft entry got changed last time, who did the changes, draft administration, draft UUID, we can see what was the operation code, means you edit the entry, you deleted the entry, that operation code, and other details we are having in this particular draft include. For each entry, this additional information will be added. So this is the how this include work, and this is our first field is the mandate. Apart from that, you can see, if you see your draft table, this field name is the travel UID, travel ID, and if you see your root entity on which you created the draft table, the name of this particular CDS entity field name, which you have given some alias name, that alias name only we are using, travel UID, travel ID. We are not using travel underscore ID, which is available in our base table or active table. We are using the CDS entity field name. Obviously, the data element, whatever we are having here, it should match the data element with this particular travel UID, which in turn, whatever you are having in the active table. So these all are the things are important when you are working with the draft. So this is all about the draft table. Let's discuss about the total ETag field. Total ETag field is very important whenever you are working with the draft. Suppose I have started editing one of the travel instance which is available in the database. So when we are working with the draft, how it will work, you already have that particular travel instance or the travel which you want to edit. Suppose you want to edit the travel ID 444. That 444 will come in the active instance, and as soon as you are working on that particular table active instance will go to the draft instance and it will save in the draft table, and you will start working on that. When you start working on that, you will put exclusive lock on that particular active instance, so you can make sure that nobody else can change. But what happened, I have made some changes, but I didn't save in the active instance, but it automatically saved in the draft database table because I am working with the drafts. I stopped working. As soon as I stop working, after some time that exclusive lock will be removed from the active instance, and it will convert in the durable lock. In that period, some other guy came or some other program changed this particular active instance 444 which I am working on. Next day I came, I started working again on that particular draft instance 444 because I already have that draft for me. I started editing again. I saved that particular draft instance because I have completed that work now. So as soon as I started working again, I will put that again exclusive lock on that particular data because that was optimistic lock. I will convert that optimistic lock to the exclusive lock, and then I make some changes and I will save that data. As soon as you will save the data, the draft instance will be converted to again to the active instance. What will happen if I not use Total ETag because somebody else did some changes? That changes was not saved in this draft table because that another program is not using the draft concept, and we will be overwriting that changes with our changes. Since we don't know somebody else changed the data, and some other program not using the draft concept at all. So in that case, this Total ETag is useful. What we will do when we will save the data from the draft instance to active instance on the next day, before saving the data, I will compare the Total ETag value. If Total ETag value will match, then only I will save. If it don't match, then I will not save, because when Total ETag value will not match, when you will change the active data. Whenever you will change the active data, the Total ETag value change each time. If nobody changed that your data, then Total ETag value will be matched and you can go and update without any hustle. If somebody else changed your data and obviously Total ETag value will not match, you have to discard your current draft, you have to load your current data, or if you are working with UI, it will prompt you want to reload your data or you want to override your data in the database. That's your choice, user's choice, but user will get to know somebody else got changed the data. So that is the usefulness of the Total ETag. Whenever we are converting draft data to active data, each time we will change the Total ETag. When the Total ETag will work, Total ETag will work automatically and the Total ETag field will be updated automatically if you have defined one of the field in your CDS entity using this annotation, semantic system date time last change date, and you have defined the Total ETag in your behavior definition. Suppose you have renamed that particular field in your behavior definition, so you have to do the mapping of that particular field also in your behavior definition, like we are doing for the other fields as well. So these are the things we have to make sure. In that case, the framework will automatically update your Total ETag field, and each time it will change whenever we are converting our draft data to the active data. Now, if you are not doing these things, you didn't define any field using these annotations, and you didn't define mapping, then in that case, if you want to work with Total ETag, you have to handle your Total ETag yourself. Framework will not gonna handle. You have to change your ETag field each time whenever you are modifying the data. That is your responsibility if you are not doing this kind of things. Now you will we have one ETag also we discussed in my previous video. What is the difference between this Total ETag and ETag? Total ETag field only useful when you are changing the draft data to active data. But there is some application which is not using the draft concept, which is only using the normal ETag, and that application also modifying that same table. In that case, the ETag is useful because ETag will be work when you are loading the data in front end. You are working with that, and somebody else changed the data, and you are not working with the latest data. You are without unknowingly you save the data. You don't want to overwrite other guy data. That time ETag field will be compared, and you will get to know, yeah, somebody changed the data. I want to overwrite that data, or I want to load again the data and make my changes. The ETag concept I explained in detail in my previous video. You don't know, then you can watch that particular video. Both concepts are same, But total ETag work when we are saving the draft instance to active instance, and ETag work normally when we are working with front end active instance, front end data which is visible to the user. User don't want to override the other user data or other session which updated the data in the backend. But both concepts are same. So this is all about the total ETag. Let's move to the third pillar of the draft, that is called draft enable association. I have explained this in my previous video as well. Just for the revision, as soon as you add with the draft in your behavior definition, all the associations are available in your particular business object will become automatically draft enable associations. How the draft enable associations work? When you start from the parent to child relationship, you are reading from the parent, using the parent, you are using the reading the child or updating the child instance. That time, if you are starting from the active parent, then it will always refer to the active child instance. If you are starting from the draft parent, then it will always refer to the draft child instance. Cross reference will never happen. You can't go from active parent to the draft child or draft parent to the active child for reading or modification, any purpose. So this is how the draft enable association work. It will always retrieve the active data if it is followed from an active instance, the draft data if it is followed from the draft source instance. And as soon as you add with the draft, it will all the association will become the draft enable association. Fourth pillar of the draft is the RAP draft actions. These actions are only available if your business objects are draft enabled. What is the use of these actions? They will manipulate the data on the draft table. They will add the data, delete the data, or modify the data on the draft table. These actions should be defined on your lock master entity. Whichever the entity you have defined as a lock master, most of the case it will be your root entity you define as a lock master. Just after that, in that particular entity, you have to define each and every draft action if your business object is the draft enable. Some of the actions implicitly defined if you are not using the strict mode, and if you are using the strict mode, you have to define each and every draft actions explicitly. These are the actions like the normal actions we define for in our applications, like accept travel, reject travel, deduct discount. Those kind of button we have defined, and those kind of actions we have defined for our application. In the same way, whenever you are creating the draft applications, these draft actions we have to define. And one more important thing, we don't need to do any implementation for these draft actions. We don't need to write any single line of code in the ABAP behavior pool classes, because these all the actions just we need to define, but all things this handled implicitly by the framework. These actions work implicitly by the framework. Each and every actions what it will do, we will gonna discuss, don't worry. But these actions, whatever we have defined, those code implementation are done by the framework, and it will run by the framework only. If you want to do the additional thing apart from these actions are doing to update the draft table, we have options called the additional implementation options is available that you can do apart from whatever these actions, existing actions are doing at a specific point of time. For example, edit action will edit the draft table. It will copy the data from the active table, put the data to the draft table, and then it will do the editing part. That is the edit action work. One of the example I have given. If you want to do during the edit some additional thing, in the edit action you can define the additional implementation. I will explain these all the things, no need to worry. This draft actions available as soon as your business object, either it can be managed or unmanaged, you enable the draft with the draft using the with draft keyword. Those draft action available on both the cases, managed as well, in unmanaged as well, and it will be handled by the framework only. In unmanaged also it will be handled by the framework only. You no need to write even these actions in unmanaged scenario also, any single line of code. This will be handled by the framework. And most important, if you're using the projection behavior definition on top of your base behavior definition, you just have to use the reuse keyword using along with these actions, which actions you want to reuse, and the for your application or for your interface view or for your projection view, the draft will be enabled and those actions will work fine. Most important things, there are different actions are there. Each and every actions have the different purpose. The draft action edit, draft action activate, discard, resume, action prepare or additional save. Each action have different work. We are not doing any implementation, but what it is actually doing we will gonna understand, but not in this video. We will do this in next video. Before going to next video, please like this video, subscribe this channel, share these videos with others as well. With that, thank you and happy learning.